Hello, beautiful artisans. I am so excited to share this video with you today because I'm going to share with you about a half a dozen ways to that you can felt. Now, at this channel, we focus on repurposing, reusing, repairing, scrap fabrics, organic yarns, because today they're making recycled yarns, and or organic like wool or silks, whatever it is that you are really prone to that you gravitate towards and you want to use in your projects. So in my art world, I create all art sculptures with my wool. Now, having said that, I want to share with you about a half a dozen ways that you can felt, okay, where you're using wool, or you're using felted fabric, or you're using wool fabrics. So with that, I've got a bunch of stuff in front of me. I don't even really know where to begin. I guess I'm going to begin with the most obvious, which is needle felting. Now, so far, this is how far I've gotten on my bear. And I've had to put him to the side to get other things, focusing on other things. So he needs his ears. He's in his draft. My work is all heirloom, collectibles, and falls in the category of art sculptures. Now, if you're going into another category where you are making for the younger set, you want to always do your research and find out how to safe-proof all of your things. So I just throw that out there because I know there's a member who knows how to child-proof her things. But, for me, with my sculptures, I always put the tag on, this is not a toy. Because this is by no, you see the fibers come loose. That's a very natural part of needle felting, is your fibers will lift. So you always want to take that into account. This, I'm going to do some needle felting for you in a moment, but I just want to show you a couple of things. There's different wools. This wool is, I believe, Shetland. I was saying Highland, but I believe the owner of the sheep said Shetland. So, but there's all different types of wools. And the wool will lift according to what kind it is. So that's Shetland. This is a bleached out store-bought wool. It is a beautiful wool. And the yarns are all wool. They're needle felted in. This is molded. So this is wet felted and dry felted. And I'll talk to you about and show you and give you a basics to each of these. This is Angora wool. And this is a bunny that I made. This is Angora scarf crocheted. If I wanted to needle felt it into, I could. And she has a little backpack. And again, not a toy. It's not a toy. But here, I'll put this down so you can see. But isn't she adorable? But you see how the wool, the fibers lift. So she's about 5 years old, this one. So the fibers lift. Now on this one, this is Bernie Sanders, our state senator. Okay, I kind of lost his hat, so I took another hat. But this is just because I used to do caricatures. I did a bunch of caricatures for friends of mine about, oh my God, almost 10 years ago now. So what I did was take my needle felting, and I was doing caricature in mice, making the mice. Like if they wore glasses, if you could see close up. These are not glasses. This is something I'm keeping, but those are just, they're safety pins. I just kind of poked in to give the effect of glasses. And then I gave him a beard and his mittens. At the time, they took a newspaper, a photo image of Bernie Sanders, and we were all making, all of us artists in Vermont were making little Bernie Sanders with the big mittens. So that's how I made him. And these are wet felted a bit, and and then I just took yarn and needle felted them on, and I just sewed on. This is actually made from a sock. I don't know if you can see the ribbing on the shorts, but they're made from socks that I just cut and sewed. Now, the socks being wool, I could needle felt them right onto the needle felted body because I work with all. So anyway, it's just a piece of art sculpture, kind of making fun of our Bernie Sanders in a loving manner. I don't want to make fun of anybody, like fun. So, but on this, what I wanted to point out is that you don't see the wool lifting a lot on this one. And this is because it's a different type of wool. I believe this is merino wool. I had some merino wool that I got at the thrift shop. So the merino wool doesn't lift as much or in the same manner. So now with that said, I'm going to recommend, I don't even know if this book is out nowadays, but I don't want to forget to recommend this, so I'm going to do it now. This, I can't go through the book because of, you're just not allowed to. But this book is about, I don't see the date on here, but it's really old. I want to say it's probably 13 years old. I don't know. But it's called Felt. It's an Australian magazine type of book. It's not a magazine, it's a book. But anyway, it's Australia. Oh, it says Australia Magazine for Felting and More. And this at the time was issue 11 and 9.99. So you see the little penguin on the front there. They show you how to make that. They go through different types of felting in this magazine. So check that out. Try to get it if you can. It's probably online. Now, so with that said, I'm going to put my bear over here and get my little cushion. Now, so I want to go over the supplies with you a little bit. What I do typically is I have a cushion, and this is makeshift. This is from a pillow because my other one I threw it away actually because I had needle felted on it for so long. So this one I'm going to spiffy it up a little bit more, but I just simply, because this particular cushion is a fill and kind of placed together. So I tied it together just to keep it in. This is the only space I need. This is it's about, a foot by a foot. And so it's a nice enough space I can place my art sculptures onto. So, or if you're going to do deco balls, little ones like that, or you're going to do your little purse, this is what you want if you are using a felting needle. This is what you want, because when you do the jabbing, when you do like that, and I'm going to get some wool here. Let's say we'll make this piece. This is going to be a sheep. So watch how I'm doing this. Now, I very instinctively will go on the side. I just do. But I've got better over the many years in going straight up and down, because that's what you're supposed to do. When you come in on the side, it does wear on the needle a little bit. It could break the needle. Now, this needle is a little bent. And I have some other needles here. I had gotten a package of about 5 of these about 3-4 years ago. I have not replaced any of them since, but I may do that in the near future. They are not, they're under $10. and they should still be under that. They're not much. So I got this handle, quarter of a century ago, and it's very worn. And I tried to find another one like it, and I'm not able to. Not unless it's very expensive. I had gotten this way back then, like $5.99, but now they're way more. Uh, the handle, not the needle. The needles are still affordable. So, anyway, you go straight, typically straight up and down, and I call it jabbing, and other people call it other things. But when you go at a slower pace, I don't mean slow, but at a rhythmical pace, and you're going around in the same area, it actually felt quicker, as if you're going really super fast. Because when you're going super fast, the hook isn't even catching the wool. It's just not. So if you go at a rhythmic pace, whatever you're shaping, whatever you're doing, keep it facing towards you, keep your needle straight up and down. And the reason you need this is because when you're jabbing, if you try to take your wool and jab this or do your needle felting on, let's say you're trying to do it on the table, I'm just going to show you. You go, I just hit the table. I'm just going to show you. You see the needle right there? That's what happens because your wool collapses as it's air. There's all air filtering through your wool. It's like a little air bubble. So that goes through. So you do not want to be on any kind of surface because this will break immediately, very quickly. Now for your cushion, if you're just starting and you're not familiar with this, I was just looking for a tape measure here, and I should have it. Oh, look, organization. How's that for organizations? Right in front of my face. Beautiful. So let's give you a good idea on what I'm using. Yeah, this is about a foot, just about a foot exactly. Okay. And so it's about, I don't know, I say about 5 inches. No, it's about 4. And that's very good. This is the top right here. This is good. And at the very least, you want at the very least 2. I would say 4 to 5 is perfect. 4 to 5 is perfect because you want plenty of space for your needle to be able to go down into without worrying about touching any surfaces. So you want to take really good care of your needle felting needle. Now, the needle felting needle can accommodate many different ways of felting. So I'm going to show you that in a moment. And also talk to you about different ways of felting. And then we're going to go a little bit more into the Carmella way of mixed methods of felting, which some of you got over on Patreon, a little preview of it. And we'll talk even more about that. So, anyway, now for wool, it doesn't matter if you're going to be experimenting and working with you're crocheting your wool and you want to use a needle felting because you want to get that effect with your wool strands. You want to make it really pretty. Look, this is super important. I'm just going to put this like this, that you have a cushion, because the same thing is going to happen. Now, you want to actually, when you are needle felting, and I'm going to go into this more specifically, but when you're needle felting a piece of fabric, you want to go slow. If the needle is resisting, lift it and don't try to pressure it through because it will break, possibly. So, it's resisting because it means that there's no space for it to go through. So there could be reason for that. Maybe the fabric you chose or the yarn that you thought was 100% wool is ending up being part with spandex or something, or polyester or acrylic. Something's in there preventing that needle from going through, because that's meant to work with your organic fabrics. So anyway, I think that gives you a good idea about this. I'm going to keep it close by in case we need it. We'll put it right here. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about felting. So I'm going to talk to you about wet felting, because now I did not wet felt anything. That's a whole nother video. However, I do have the basics to wet felting I want to describe to you. I went through my drawers and I still had I had enough things that I could get together to show you. Now, wet felting is an ancient process, and when they did it way back when, they weren't using plastic bags. Some of you may be very familiar with that, as in the schools, primary and even secondary, they will get they will get wool like this. They'll put it in a plastic bag, they'll add some water, and they'll have the kids squish it around. And that is a very fun, very good introductory way. Many times they will add mild or watered down soap detergent, dish detergent. I say be very, very careful with that. If you do use any detergent, and you're kind of experimenting because you want to get the idea of how long it takes to felt, what's going on, make sure you rinse it out completely. So with that, I'll explain to you more about that type of wet felting. But wet felting is typically, way back in the ancient times, what they did was they didn't use the plastic. Way back then, they may take cloth, and they may take just bamboo, something like that, way back when. So, and they may do like that. So the either or, I've done this both ways, but whatever you have here, it could, if it's organic, it could kind of accidentally felt a little bit to the wool you're using. But this is what they would do, is they would take wool and they would just use water from the river, but they would take the wool and they would spread it out on whatever they were using for a mat that they were going to roll it up in. So they're going horizontally, and you're taking this and you're going all different directions also, but then you lay it down and basically you're making layers. Now this is how they make rugs. This is how they make wall pieces. This is how they make blankets. This is an ancient way of making wool. And it goes way, way, way back. And we'll do a whole video on the history because it's very interesting. So then you go vertically, and then again, there's a piece of hay there. Now, as you felt too, when you actually do the felting, certain things will lift. Maybe a little hay will lift out of there, whatever. So anyway, you're doing your layers. I did 2 layers. This is like 2 layers so far. So if I do a third layer, I go like, again, now I could go horizontal, or I could go a different direction like that. Because the idea of going very different directions when you're doing your wet felting is it gives a better chance for the fibers to hook. So typically, what people do is put plastic in between, so that the plastic or underneath the plastic catches the water. And I'll have to revamp exactly which layer people are using plastic for nowadays, but you can use a plastic sheet. So here, and they even use this rubber sheet like this, okay? So here, I could put this rubber sheet like that. Okay. And now you can, what they call roll it. Oh, sorry. One step, super duper important. This is sprayed with water. It is sprayed and saturated and get nice, nice and wet. Wet felting. And then you cover it, and now you start to roll. Now, when you roll it, you're going to roll it super duper tight. And I'm working very small space. I don't do the wet felting because of space, but I'm wondering, kind of just doing this, maybe I could do some again. Um, Maybe I can. But this is the thing. There's a couple of things you do here. Now, based on the ancient methods of what they would do, they would, and then you tie it super duper tight. And what they would do back then is they'd have a piece like this, probably 6 feet long and, rolled up pretty darn good where the diameter is maybe a couple of feet. I don't know, pretty big. And they would attach it to their horses, their buggies, and trot around, or their donkey or whatever they had, and trot it around, walk it around. And when they did that, this would bump, but bump, but bump. Now, so where modern day contemporary people get the idea, they're not slapping it on their hands like this, but they go outside and they're kind of banging it on a log or banging it on the ground. Now, if you bang it too hard, it won't felt. It won't felt well. You want to do enough so that you're jolting the fibers. So the fibers are hooking, they're melding better. So and then typically what you do is after you do all of that for quite a little while, you open it up back up, and then oops, and then you take your layers off, and this piece that you laid down, this piece is off is felted. Now typically what I used to do with my rugs is I would take the piece, look, this is almost felting just without water. I would take the piece and I would turn it around and press it and then spray a little bit, and then I would roll it back up. And that's just giving you a little bit of an intro of the basics for wet felting. That's typically what wet felting, and there's different ways to do it. You can take, like I said, you could take a plastic bag just to get an idea. Don't saturate it. I noticed they put tons of water in there. You really do not have to put lots of water in the little plastic bag that you're using. Just get it saturated, get a good amount of water out in the wool and this and that, and then just, going like that. That's a whole different method than this type of wet felting. You can also wet felt dreadlocks. I did that for quite some time. Now you can also wet felt, and this is something else I did. This bowl is wet felted. Now, typically my bowls, I used to have bowls where I had lids. I also made lids, and they were wet felted and they were thinner than this, but I didn't like them being really thin. I thought if I was going to make a fabric bowl, I'd want it to be a little thick, to have a little substance to it. So what I did with this, and you can see it, is pretty well smoothly shaped in the middle there. That's because I laid it over. See if I have something here. Like you could lay it over a piece like this. Let's see if this fits. You could lay it over a piece like that. Now, if you laid it over a piece like this, yeah, I don't see. Actually, let me use this here, because I'm going to use this. Be careful with, you have to be very careful with these needles. They are very, very, dangerously sharp. They are. They are sharp. You always want to have a place to place them. But just for a moment, I'll show you this. So this bowl, like if I placed it over the bowl and this was wet, so I'm able to shape it. And this is how too they shape the felted hats. You're placing your felted wool that you felted it here. You have to get it felted to some degree. So you felted it here, and then you put it over your bowl for it to dry. And this is when you can do, you can even kind of, what some people do, you could start, shaping it with little decorations, like put little buttons in it or rocks in it, and tie them so when it dries, it's drying with this little, bubble effect all around. But you get the idea when it's wet, and you actually see how that can be done. It's hard to show you this here, but this is just an intro, and it's a fun way to make a bowl. So that's a little bit on wet felting. So I'm going to put this to the side. So you've got a little idea now. You've got an idea on the dry felting, which is how we make our polar bear. Dry felting. It's just using just the needle. And then you have a little bit idea, of which I'm going to talk about more here in a minute, on using wool fabrics that are also felt. You can use your needle to felt fabrics onto. And now you've got your wet felting. Okay, so we'll put that to the side for the moment. Now, I just want to show you this before we proceed. It kind of sounds like a technical thing, doesn't it? This is a felt. And this is a piece, look, I got for $1 at the thrift shop. Now, the only reason I got this piece, I would never pick up a piece like this, because I do not care for this type of felt. However, I picked it up with the anticipation that maybe we're doing an intro class on needle felting. And this is super duper easy to needle felt. Okay, so let me get this back. This can be needle felted. So I'm going to put this down. This does not cost a lot. And just looking at it, you can see compared to, this type of felted wool, you can see everything's pressed straight out of it. Everything. This is a snippet of real wool. It's a snippet. But because it's considered, it is organic, it's pressed, you can needle felt into it. So this is another type of fabric. Now, you see how easy it's needle felting? If this fabric was blended and didn't have any organic fibers, there's no way it would allow you to do it. Your needle would stop. It wouldn't go in like that. It would just stop. And this would not adhere. You can see it adhering beautifully in the back. So, now with that, let's say you're like, oh, I made a mistake. You can pull these out. And I want to show you when I'm pulling. See the fibers coming out? It's like threads of, like you sewed it in there. Now, with that said, this is a primary thought to keep in mind when you are needle felting your dry felting, unless it's a thick, thick piece. If you're doing something like this, and maybe you're making a picture or whatever, of piece for art. You want to hang it up on the wall. So you want to keep in mind how easily you just lifted that up. So with that idea, you probably want to put layers of this, like use a base to cover your whole picture. And we can do this one day too. Use a base of wool, and then on top of that, if you're going to put colors, maybe put those on top of your base. That's how I would do it. And it wouldn't hurt to spray it a little bit with water and let it dry, because now you have just added a little bit of wet felting technique to it. So there's a few different ways that you can do. Some people would say, no, you don't do that. But if it's all fabric, and you want it to adhere beautifully, that's a Carmella thing. That's what I would do. And that way it lasts. And my stuff lasts. I'm telling you, some of these things, they're old. Okay. Now this little gnome, this is, these are all strands of yarn. Now, the way I got the yarn like that is I just unwound it, and I did so using I don't have any yarn here. I have it all in the bin, organized and put away. But this, I'm going to put this down. This, what you do with the yarn is you take a strand and you just take your needle. This is already done, so I don't know. I'll use the blue. It has a couple strands. So you take the needle and you're just getting it in the middle and lifting these strands and separating them. So if you have real organic in there, when you do that, when you get your needle, let me do this again. I'm sorry, I don't think you saw that. Here, we'll do, when you get your needle into the yarn, it's going to get a little puffy. And so then you know, yeah, you've got some organic fibers there. So, and it just makes the beard a little fluffy. And with your organic fibers, here, I'm going to show you one more time here because this has some, you can see these. So I'm just lifting it a little bit, and then I go up a little farther until I've got them separated. But when you have organic fibers in here, it allows you to take those fibers and needle felt them into the wool. His nose is sheep's wool and his body is sheep's wool. So these were all needle felted with the needle into, and I can feel this going into the wool. So you know they adhere. And then you just check them out a little bit and make sure they're staying nicely, get them in there really well. And just again, just a little another safety tip. That's why these are not toys, because if you get someone or you get a pet pulling on it and yanking, these will definitely come apart for sure. I sewed on the little hat, and here I needle felted his little coat on here. It's needle felted on. This is wool. It's from like a wool sweater. So you can use your wool sweater. So now with that, I want to talk to you a little bit about agitation and felting before we get on, because I want to make sure I'm covering. There's a lot to cover on this, but I want to cover it in here because if you hear something you really, really like and you want to do, you can get your books, you can get, there's special tutoring and lessons out there. You know, you can start at least you know where to start looking and what the names of these skills are. And I can at least get you started. And as I go along on my channel, I can definitely bring you along. A lot of people learn from just seeing, and I do. I'm one of those people. So, but you know, you get your magazines, get your books, all of these things, because there's so many different techniques and things to learn. So now this, I showed this to you a few times now. This is a blanket that I got also at the thrift shop along with that green felt with the idea of an upcoming class. I'm not so sure the class is going to occur. However, if it doesn't, that's okay, because guess what? We've got all this we can work with. And so now how did this get felted? Somebody yeah, this is definitely knitted. Somebody knitted this blanket and in pure wool. Now, how do you know it's pure wool? Pure, rough, raw wool feels rough. It really does. You know, I mean, there is merino wool. There's Angora, there's llama, you know, llama wool. All those are really super soft. However, there is this wool that's rough. And that's what this is. Somebody put this in the washing machine. And you can tell. I can tell because first of all, this is when you put a piece of wool in the washing machine, it's going to what they call get agitated. The washing machine is going to go. Now you can do this in your kitchen sink. Experiment. It's a lot of fun. Take a piece of wool, whatever it is, maybe a sweater you no longer like, or a hat, or whatever it is, something you got at the thrift shop. Put it in cold water and let it soak for a little bit. And kind of when it's in the water, kind of, you know, squish it around. And then take it and put it in the sink or a bowl with hot water. And you just go back and forth, maybe about, I would say 3 times. Let it soak each time really good. Because when it's in the cold water, the fibers are constricting, you know, they're shrinking. And then when it's in the hot water, it's I believe, or either or. Trying to remember, it's stretching, it's going the other way. And what happens is it ends up shrinking and or decreasing somewhat in size, depending how long you're doing it. And a lot of people do add mild soap and water to it. So this you can see here, it's kind of pulled together here at the ridges. And so this definitely was a piece that was agitated. And even the strands are agitated. So, and this is good because what actually that means is this is now a felted piece. So, with that, I could put this in the washing machine again, and I can agitate it some more, but I'm not going to. I'm not going, and then I could put it in the dryer. So, and that would even add to the adherence of the fibers would hook together even more, and it would give the shrinkage effect. So this is another way of felting. People will do this to fabrics. You could just throw it in the washing machine, right? But then when you take it out, you can actually cut this. You can cut and sew this, and you can make a really nice bag. And maybe we'll do that with this piece because this is nice. And we can do some needle felting design onto it. You know, we can make a nice bag. This maybe is the end of the bag, you know, right there, like the bottom of it. So, anyway, that's an idea, but that's, another type of felting. Now, along with that, there's another type of felting, and it's called boiled wool. And I have done that. I experimented and I never really I did it about a half a dozen times because I was but I didn't like it. And I felt like it was difficult for me to get the effect I wanted. And I didn't like working with boiling water. I didn't like putting the wool in boiling water, and that's what it is. So I don't know step by step on that right now because I'm trying to think of what the steps were right before I put them in and what I did immediately after. So because I'm not clear on that, I'm just kind of telling you that there is that method if you wanted to look it up and try to get more info. Um, what's so great about boiled wool? The effect. The effect of your piece. It comes out like this piece. It would change the surface of it. And you make everything tighter, really much tighter. So, and maybe we could get some samples of it. If I find any samples at the thrift shop, I'll get them for you. Now, with that said, this is very rough, raw wool. This is a wool piece I was showing as a quick demo. I used as a quick demo. Beautiful piece of wool. This is it here. We did the little did the little needle felting on it, and I was using this as a demo. So this is the thing. This is what I want to emphasize today. So you can take a piece like this that's you've agitated it. You know, it's knitted, it's crocheted, you really like it, you know it's wool, but you don't want it to be, you want it to be tighter, you want it to be felted. So you could put that in the washing machine, or you could take a wool piece like this, and or you can take crocheted pieces that you have crocheted. Like this is actually crocheted. Look I used this as a padding because I was putting a foot on one of my creatures, and this is perfect to hold the little foot on. But you see all the wool adhered to it because this is wool. So, but um, you can take a piece like this, and yes, you can add your other wool strands, and or you can let me get my scissors. You can add other pieces of fabric. And we're just going to stay with the organics because I really don't want to I don't unless you're experienced, you really want to be careful about using other fabrics that might have blends because you do not want to what do I want to say, break your needle. So now see here, look, because this is felted, you couldn't cut this if this was not felted. It like the whole thing would fall apart. So because it's felted, every single part of those fibers have adhered. And nice way. I mean, look at that. So, but you could. So I want to show you this, and I'm going to move these here somewhere there and put this here. So I just want to show you the different ways that you can, well, maybe we could use this. Let's use this one because, oh, it's the same fiber. That's okay. We'll use this. Okay, so yesterday I was showing you needle felting with wool fibers onto this adorable plaid wool piece. Now, let's say you want to take another piece of fabric, or you want to take a sweater, or you want to take something else, and you want to needle felt it onto this. So first, what we're going to do, because I haven't done this before, is I'm going to go carefully. I want to be careful. I don't want to just start jabbing. I want to make sure. Now, first of all, I'm going to tell you, ideally, if you have um, some splay, from whether it's your yarn or a teeny tiny piece of wool, which, yes, you can get from your yarn, that is the best way to begin. And because that way you're going to know right away if this is working. Now, if you start to needle felt it without any type of, what do you want to call, adherence, or organic fabric that's going to adhere. Basically, it's like this. You have to have, if you don't have to have wool, but you need at least, if you have wool yarn, use your splays. Super duper, not much of it at all, but you need it because what it does, it's like your little sewing needle, and you don't put much because it will totally disappear into, or you can keep the effect. You can do it to the point where um you keep the effect. So let's just put this on here. I'm spreading it out. I don't need much at all. I'm actually maybe got too much here, but I'm like, okay, this is going through. So now technically, right now, I am needle felting a piece of fabric onto a piece of wool. I am working with 3 fabrics. So I want to be very gentle and good to my needle felting needle. Now, you can also use a sewing needle. You can take other pieces of fabric and adhere them with a typical sewing needle. And that's absolutely seriously adorable. I've done that many times. So we're going to go a little bit because I want to show you the fibers going through. Now you're like, well, Carmella, I don't want those fibers to show. So if you don't want, because they're going to show, see, those have gone through. If you do not want them to show, what you're going to do or what you can do, because one thing we didn't do with this, which is fine, but we didn't put a lining. We could have sewn a lining into this. But if you sew a lining, like I didn't feel this really needed it, nor even with this, it's just authentically the way it is. But if I do put a lining in this, or I would do it before I fold it up. And I would want to make sure it's organic fabric also. But this is beautifully sealed. And I would put a few stitches. I love this. Like I was saying in this other video, I'm going to be I'm going to go through, I'm going to sit here and design. I'm going to take a whole day like, I'm addicted to this. I love this. I mean, I love everything, but when I see how cutesy this is again, it just reminds me how cutesy it is. Anyway, this is just vintage vibing. This is actually truly vintage. This is old and it's adorable. So now this is blended, but like I said, this silky blend here definitely had a little bit of organic in it, but I went ahead and I threw some sashiko stitches in there. I left it nice and raw around the edges to fray, and I decorated it with a little wool flower in the middle. So, and that's all that is a variegated wool yarn, crocheted. And this is a really old button. So anyway, now let me look at my list because I'm pretty sure we're done. But yeah, so oh, there is one other thing I just want to throw out there to you about wool. And then I'm going to emphasize the mixing. You can dye wool. Now, there are people who when they dye it with all natural, like natural teas, natural floral colors, vegetation. Again, you want to get educated on it, as you don't want to go out there and grab something out of the field that is, itchy. You dyed your wool in it. But no, I mean, there's lots of information out there, lots of classes out there. I don't have any specific. I've dyed the in my journals, my junk journals. I always dye with tea. And if I have any rose petals, I try to do that. I just love that. But it's usually tea because I have it readily available. So anyway, with that, I just want to emphasize again, this is very much a Carmella way. There may be other techniques out there, and it's the same here with the bowls. With these bowls, this is what I did want to say. With the bowls, these are needle felted on. Now I could have wet felted these on. And if I did that, when I was rolling everything up, I would have had my strands of wool yarn kind of laying in there. And now if I added like silk or something, now we're talking about Nuno felting. So wanted to throw that out there to you. Nuno felting is another way of felting. It's a wet felt. It's wet felting. And if you get that magazine or a magazine like it, or at the library, I used to go to the library when I first got into this. My kids were really little, and we were always at the library. So I was always in the art section while the lady was reading stories to them. And there were always many books on everything I wanted to do, felting, needle felting, and whatever it is I was working on at the time. So that's a wonderful way to get some more, nitty-gritty info. I will give you tips as we go along for sure. And but if you have any questions, if you've gotten a piece of fabric, you're not sure about it, or whatever it is, please feel free to ask me. I'm more than happy to help you. And but remember, this is a Carmella mix. You might see this out there somewhere, I don't know. But if you don't, and you're curious to ask me any questions about how I'm doing it, please do. I'm more than happy to help you, because I often think if somebody could do this and make lots and lots of them, you could sell them. The key is being consistent and, not like a cookie cutter, but, being consistent with the size, around the size, and presenting it, and, having that energy to really focus on it. This would be an adorable little piece to have out there in a boutique. I really believe that. Anyway, with that, you have an absolutely beautiful day, and we'll see you in the next one.